Welcome back, everyone, to the weekly Armchair Kickoff podcast. Today, I'm joined by a very, very special guest here today. So I'm joined by one of the leading podcasters in Scottish football at the moment. I'm joined by Grant Campbell from the Campbells Footballs podcast, and it's his first appearance on the channel here today. I was previously on Grant's podcast a couple of weeks ago myself, and I made my first appearance over there. So Grant has, thankfully, returned the favour here today, and we're absolutely glad to have him on the show here today. Grant, how are you this evening?
I'm very well, Keane. Nice to be on the weekly Armchair Kickoff, my debut appearance. Thanks for inviting me on. I'm really well. It's nearly the end of another week. It's been a really incident-packed week footballing-wise, but yeah, it wouldn't be the same without it, would it?
Yeah, it wouldn't be the same. This week as a whole for football fans, it's been a really sad week for all of us, in the world of football. Obviously, the tragic news broke yesterday of Diego Maradona, and he sadly passed away yesterday at the age of 60. And it's the world of football is mourning his death at the moment. And I send my best wishes and my prayers to his family, at this difficult time. And it's really tough, and it's a really sad day for the world of football.
Yeah, I echo your words. Very sad news about Diego Maradona. Obviously, I'm too young to remember him at his peak, but we've all seen the videos, haven't we? The famous hand of God goal. But the goal I feel that gets grossly overlooked is the second goal. A wonderful piece of individual brilliance against England. Maradona was a maverick, but he was a wonderful, wonderful player. And, I think football is a poorer place without him in the world now. And yeah, I echo your words. Very sad day.
Yeah, it's the memories they see, all the footballers, all the panelists, everyone, teammates, everybody, obviously putting up their posts, and they're all speaking so highly of him. And he was a true great at the game. He really was, and he's going to live. His memories in terms of his quality is going to live on forever. And essentially, he'll always be remembered as one of the all-time greats. I think that speaks volumes about what his quality was as a player.
Yeah, and one thing that's just to come in there, it's quite funny. Well, it's not funny, but it's quite apt in a way that his death was on exactly the same date as what happened with George Best. Of course, died 15 years ago yesterday, and that was quite weird in a way, but quite spooky, you could say. But it's quite unbelievable. Two of football's greats dying on the same date in history. It's quite extraordinary. But one can only imagine the scenes in Argentina and Buenos Aires right now. I think it was speaking to my family about this tonight, actually. I think I imagine the scenes will be equatable to what happened to Eva Perón back in the day, Don't Cry For Me, Argentina, and that very synonymous film. Of course, Vita was made of that. And it's just, it's something that is equatable to that. And footballing has lost a genius. There is absolutely no question about that.
Yeah, and it is a massive loss for the football world. And I just hope, though, his family and everyone to show some support during this tough time. Grant, yourself, you've been doing this podcast now for quite some time now. Your own football podcast, Campbells Footballs, and you predominantly cover kind of the Scottish Premier League and also Northern Irish football. Just talk to our viewers, if they haven't heard your podcast before, just talk to our viewers kind of about your own podcast, about what you cover in Scotland and Northern Ireland, and kind of predominantly what you do.
So Campbells Footballs really started out, Keane, as a venture of mine long before it became a podcast. It started out as a Facebook Live sort of weekly event on a Saturday morning around 9 o'clock back in 2017. I started it out as a prediction show because my Twitter handle, as you can see on the screen there, is at @stato_grant, which was two things. The reason why it's called that. One is because I've always been a massive fan of making football predictions. I'm not very good at them, but it's always good fun to always have a bit of banter with my family on a Saturday, especially my dad. My dad and I are really into that sort of thing. But also it was synonymous with my PhD, because my PhD was in soil science and the world of the earth sciences, and quite a lot of my work was looking at statistical analysis and things like that. So hence why Stato Grant seemed to fit as a Twitter handle, but also as my nickname, Stato, which many know. But Campbells Footballs took off as a Facebook Live event every Saturday. I would give a monologue of my own thoughts on the week's events, both in the Champions League, Europa League, but generally in the world of British football, i.e. the English Premier League and the Scottish Premiership. And then I'd give my predictions for the weekend's games. People could comment on them, see if they could beat my scores to win a Campbell's Footballs mug. Sadly, the mugs are discontinued because I decided to change my logo and I have no more mugs left. So that's what I'm hoping for from Santa this year. Get some money so I can get some more mugs. But then after a while, I started to think I could really make this a bit of an event, a bit of an experience for people. So I ended up asking some of my friends, some of my pals, similar to what we're doing here, Keane, to come on the show as a Facebook Live event. We would sit in a pub or sit over Facebook Live or Zoom or whatever and just chew the fat about the major footballing events and then go head-to-head in our predictions, which usually I would lose pretty much every week. But that's the beauty of the show. It was always good fun. And then after a while, obviously, I'd finished my PhD. I moved into full-time employment. And a really big period of that was about trying to make it into a podcast so that people can actually listen to my discussions on the move. And, probably my major sort of player right at the very beginning was my great friend, Gavin Craw, who is in Hong Kong. He was a big influencer for me in my early beginnings of the show. And my very first guest, Martin Stone, who is an Aberdeen football fan and blogger, unmodernman.net, if people want to check that out. Martin is a real synonymous Aberdeen fan, a really great guy. He was my very first guest. But as I was starting to evolve, I thought, you know what, this is an opportunity to just see who is up for it, see who can, talk about it. But what I wanted to do was to have that variety of football fans, ex-pros, commentators, journalists, a real mix, a real eclectic mix, I could say. And, I've been really grateful to have interviewed people like Guy Mowbray, who is one of my footballing commentary icons and legends. The former Scotland manager and Aberdeen manager, Craig Brown, who undoubtedly was one of my greatest experiences of interviewing, which I'm sure we'll maybe come on to talk about later on. I've had the honour of chatting to Richard Gordon for my 100th show. He's synonymous with Sports Sound on BBC Radio Scotland. But I've chatted to people like Matt Holland, Tony Cottee, Henry Winter, Oliver Holt, Leanne Crichton, so many names, Keane. But the great thing about it is it's the local people as well in my area here in the northeast of Scotland. Many people don't know their stories, and that's the great thing about Campbell's Footballs. Anybody and everybody is welcome to come on the show to just chew the fat with me and share their stories about their own footballing journeys, whether they were a player, whether they were a fan, or whether they were somewhere in between. And it's absolutely fantastic, and I have no plans to stop just now because I've done 150 shows, and I'm really keen to do 150 plus more.
Yeah, and look, you're doing a fantastic job over there. And, recently when the lockdown started, I got in contact with Cam McFadden as he's dropped a comment in there with regard to Celtic, which we will come to in a moment. And, I got to know him, and then I got to know you through Callum, and I've listened to quite a bit of your content, and it's very good. And, you're after interviewing a lot of great people, within the game. So, my props to you for that. You're doing a fantastic job. And as you said, you've done over 150 shows, which that's an absolutely fantastic milestone to be hit. And as you said, you're driven to even do 150 more. So it shows that you're driven and you really enjoy what you're doing. That's absolutely the main thing.
I want people to understand as well that I am not a journalist as well. I think a lot of people listen to me and think that I have a gift of the gab and that I have a lot of notes in front of me and I do a lot of preparation work. Of course, I do a lot of prep, but I have a font of knowledge. And, quite a lot of the stuff, I'm a very quick learner with things. I have this quirkiness of just picking something up quite quickly. And, obviously the bigger guests, you obviously have to prepare a little bit more because, that's what, you want to make a really good job. But I think it's important to just try and make sure that your own natural ability shines through, that you're having a rapport with your guest to make sure that it's not very formal or structured in some ways, that it's quite flexible. And, I've been as I said, I've been very grateful to have chatted to a range of people. You mentioned earlier on about Scottish football, but I've also been very fortunate to chat to a range of people within Northern Ireland. I've really connected with the Northern Irish League for the last 5 and a bit years, chatting to some real characters from the Danske Bank Premiership and the world of the Irish League. And there's some really fab guys who, again, as I mentioned earlier on, their stories are untold or not told in depth to a range of wide outlets like we all know and love, Open Goal, Super Scoreboard, all these big things. I think, things like this, gives an opportunity for maybe some of the unsung heroes, if you like, to get their stories told. And I've been really lucky to have chatted to people that play for Glentoran, Larne, Coleraine, Portadown, some great clubs. And in fact, I'm very excited tomorrow to chat with one of Linfield's all-time record goal scorers, and Andy Waterworth. And I'm really, really looking forward to chatting to Andy because, it's characters like Andy, as I said, but also a range of other people like Owen Bradley, who I spoke to recently back in the summer. People like Jim Magillan, who obviously had a terrific career at Ipswich. And people, just a range of people, Keane. I could go on for hours. I treat every show, no matter who it is, whether it's someone local, whether it's Tony Cotty, I treat everybody the same. And I hope my own natural love of their interests and their love of the game shines through as well.
Yeah, and that's the best way to do it. Whether it's Tony Cotty, whether it's myself, whether it's anybody else you have in the show. Once you keep doing it that same way, and you have your own kind of, I suppose, way of doing it. That's the best. That's the best way to do it. Do what makes you kind of most comfortable. It's always kind of good to be in your comfort zone whilst you're on a show. So I absolutely do. I agree with you on that because I know when I started this, I was a nervous wreck. I was an absolute nervous wreck doing this. Do you know what I mean? Because public speaking for me wasn't kind of, I suppose, one of my biggest strengths. And then I started this, and it just took me leaps and bounds. Now every time I do a show, I'll tell everyone the truth right now. We're live. I'll tell everyone the truth. Then 30 seconds before we go live, my heart doesn't skip a beat. It's racing. But then once I get on the screen and brand, but trust me, I'm still nervous. But I suppose it comes with experience. And you're doing this kind of a long time, 5 or so years. It's a pretty long time to be doing it.
I'll share a story with you as well, just to make things interesting. My very first Facebook live show, I did hungover. I was so nervous the night before. I got really drunk. I was absolutely bricking it, and I didn't intend to get drunk or whatever. I just decided, I was really excited. I really wanted to make it entertaining and really enjoyable. So I was really excited, and I woke up the next morning, and I wasn't hungover as in really tired. I was hungover as in really, really excited. I was still buzzing. I just couldn't get to sleep. I was so excited. So I started off by doing, and you're listening to Campbells Footballs, and I was going really, really loud. Almost Jeremy Vine-esque. If you ever listen to Jeremy Vine, where he speaks very, very quickly, and then he slows it down. And so I was a bit like that. I was making it very entertaining, and people were like, "Wow, are you still on the lash or whatever?" And it was so funny. And I actually watched it back, and I thought, "Oh my God, what the hell have I done here?" And then I got all these messages from people saying that was brilliant. You need to do this every single week. I've toned it down obviously a lot since then, but. Oh my God, Keane, that was an experience I'll never forget. And I don't often share that story, so people who are watching this are getting a little nugget of something that I've kept under wraps for many years. I've been withering whether to tell it, but I thought I'd tell it now since you told me yours.
That's always good in this channel when we do get a nice weekly Armchair Kickoff exclusive. So there you go, lads. There's another one. There's another one. I'm just going to come to Callum's comment there because obviously, look, granted, the Europa League is on tonight, and Celtic have just finished up against Sparta Prague, and it looks like Celtic have lost 4-1 tonight. So, Neil Lennon is someone who is under a lot of pressure at the moment. It's been highlighted in the media, and he's under a lot of criticism at the moment. For you, I see Callum's comment here. Should Celtic replace Neil Lennon, and if so, who should replace him with?
Well, first of all, before I come to Callum's question, I watched the game tonight, and it was a pretty awful result for Celtic. I mean, I watched the start of the game, and when Celtic got their nose in front, I actually commented on Twitter. It looked like Celtic were maybe beginning to turn a corner, and when they got the opening goal, you just think, oh well, this might be the catalyst to turn things around, because usually when Celtic have under pressure in seasons, there's always a game where things just click and turn around. And I thought, okay, 1-0, they'll go on to certainly not lose the game in the manner that they did tonight. I thought they might have maybe got a narrow 1-0 or a 2-1 or whatever. but it just didn't happen for them. And to lose 4-1 again, because they lost 4-1, remember, in Glasgow in the previous match day against the same opposition. That is pretty poor. There's no two ways about it. That is a pretty embarrassing result yet again for Neil Lennon and Celtic. In terms of Callum's question, I think there's a lot of threads to untangle with this. First of all, I think the Europa League, certainly their campaign this year has been an absolute disaster. I think it all kicked off with that. Certainly the defeat against Ferencvaros in the Champions League before it went even come close to the Europa League. They sort of scraped through to get to the group stage. They were pretty poor to get there, but they nicked a 1-0 win to get into the Europa League. Then they played Milan. Milan are a good side. They've improved a lot in recent seasons. So, first game, they're at home against Milan. Always tough. And they did lose that one. They then went over to Lille. Were 2-0 up. Didn't see the game out. Got a point. Not a disastrous result, but not a great result considering they were 2-0 up. The two matches against Sparta Prague, for me, are killers. Especially the home game. Because no Celtic side in my lifetime, or certainly in recent times, I should say, capitulate so easily as that and lose 4-1 at Celtic Park. Fans or not, that is a horrendous result. And no two ways about it. I mean, tonight's game, I think the pressure was maybe slightly off them tonight, or should have been slightly off them tonight, because realistically, the chances of them getting out their group were minimal to negligible. I think it was pretty poor. In fact, I'm pretty sure mathematically that's it, finished now. But I think domestically, it's been very poor for them as well. I think there's so many threads to untangle in this story, Keane, and I think Callum's question is a good one, because I think there's so many different options here in terms of what my answer is. I'm going a bit long-winded, so I'm gonna try and summarise things a little bit here. I think you need to have a look at what's happening on the other side of Glasgow to see how strong a start Rangers have made. They're scoring goals for fun. They haven't lost a game yet. They haven't conceded at Ibrox. They have been ruthless. Celtic have been anything but that. And I think you look at so many problems that Celtic have. They bought in a £4.5 million goalkeeper in Barkas. Has hardly played, or has been playing but not been impressive. You have Shane Duffy, who's come into the team, is now out of the team, hasn't settled in a Celtic shirt. The defence as a whole have really struggled to really get on the same wavelength, in my opinion. I think people like Christopher Jullien have fallen out of form. Ayer has been struggling. They've had a lot of problems there. I think the fullbacks are too naive. They like to get forward, but they don't know how to defend as well. I think in midfield, they're disjointed and they lack the balance. And up front, I think they're too reliant on people like Edouard, who has been so strong for Celtic over the last 2 or 3 seasons, to dig them out of a hole when they need it. And, all these things, you add them up and they magnify a big problem. I actually don't mind Neil Lennon. I think Neil Lennon, as a manager, has been very successful in his time, certainly at Celtic, over the 2 periods he's been there. I mean, don't forget, they have a chance to win a quadruple treble very soon against Hearts in the Scottish Cup final. Should that save his job? I don't know. That's my brutally honest opinion. I think this season, undoubtedly, Celtic's main aim is to win the 10 in a row, or to win 10 league titles in a trot. Now, where you sit on that divide or that level of interest is completely up to you. I am of the opinion that I think if Celtic fans are just interested in winning the 10 in a row this season, they're short-sighted. I agree that it is an important step, and it would be historical and it would be absolutely fantastic. But the fact of the matter is, Celtic as a club should be doing much better on the European stage. And I was listening to Chris Sutton, I've been listening to John Hartson and a range of other people. And Celtic in Europe have underachieved in recent seasons. Yes, they did okay in the Europa League last season, but they should never have been losing to Copenhagen, in my opinion. Copenhagen are a good side, but they're not a great side. And I think Celtic as a club have definitely stagnated this season. Now, look across the divide and look at Rangers. Rangers have definitely strengthened. There is no question about that. They have a better balance in the team. They have players for each position, or most positions across the team. There's more depth to their team. I don't think Celtic have enough depth in the team. I don't think they have the right personnel in different positions. I don't think Neil Lennon gets the help he deserves from his coaching staff, in my opinion. but also his players, quite frankly, haven't done enough on the pitch either. A manager will ultimately take the blame, but I think his players have to take responsibility as well. So to summarise, should Celtic move Neil Lennon on? I would say not yet, but it is definitely coming to that crossroads point. I would say that if we come to next month, heading up towards the next Old Firm derby, if Celtic are further behind than what they are at the moment, or the gap is still the same, then I think they might have a change. In terms of who to replace, the answer is who would want the job. I said on Twitter tonight, I think any time other than this season would be a fine time to manage Celtic. I think this season, whoever comes in is immediately going to be under the pump because of the pressure to deliver the 10 in a row. Is it Eddie Howe? Not for me. I don't think you're looking at people like Eddie Howe, a guy who I've admired at Bournemouth. I don't think he has the credentials to manage a big club like Celtic. Celtic are a massive club, in the same way that Rangers were a massive club under Steven Gerrard. I think, for me, Celtic need to go with somebody who knows the philosophies of what it's like to, A, win big derby matches, but 2, win league titles or win major silverware.
I have someone in mind, but I'm going to come to Callum with it. Question. So my view on Eddie Howe is, Callum, with this situation with Celtic, is that Grant just alluded to it there. I think coming into this season, Eddie Howe coming in mid-season and kind of having to claw back the kind of sizable gap in the league. For me, I don't think he's the man. If it was the start of the season, I would say Eddie Howe. Mid-season, to come in and galvanise the team, I don't think so. Grant mentioned 2 things here, kind of with regards to this, and it's very interesting. Someone who knows the philosophy of Celtic and someone who knows what it is to win derbies. I'm going to name someone out here. Someone who played for Celtic and also our club, Manchester United, Roy Keane. I think Roy Keane is looking to get back into management now, and I think he's someone who could go in there and who can, I think for the earliest part, give the club a boost. Because he'll come in there and he'll demand the best standards. You're talking about mediocrity with Celtic at the moment. Roy Keane will not accept that. Roy Keane will go in there and he'll be demanding the best standards of the club. I think he's someone you can bring in there and galvanise that dressing room. Because the minute he walk in that door, the first thing he'll demand is respect, and the players will give him that respect because of who he is. And I think if you're talking about a new manager bounce, I think Roy Keane could be the man to do it.
Well, there's no doubt that if Keane was to come in, it would raise the profile of Scottish football again. You know, obviously when Gerrard came into Rangers, the profile of Scottish football increased, as did Jermaine Defoe when he signed for Rangers as well, don't forget. I think if Keane was to come in, as you just mentioned, there, Keane, that's got funny there. That would be quite interesting. I personally can't see it happening, but I can understand your reasons why it might. I actually chatted with Callum off air about this recently, and we suggested Mick McCarthy as a potential opportunity. Now, obviously, Mick McCarthy is now in Cyprus managing, I believe, at Nicosia. Would that job kind of tempt him to come over there? I don't know. I really don't know. I mean, I was chatting on Twitter to a few people tonight. Somebody suggested Gordon Strachan to come back. I really don't know. I think this season, more than anything else, is the hardest time to manage a club like Celtic. It was exactly the same when Rangers were going for the 10 in a row back in the late 90s. That was a big time in the history of this Rangers-Celtic battle. I mean, I'm not a fan of either club. I must put that out there. I'm not a fan of Celtic. I'm not a fan of Rangers. I follow them with interest in Europe, and that's as far as it goes. When they come to play my team, I want them to win. And by the way, I'm an Aberdeen fan for those who want to know a bit better. But the fact of the matter is, Celtic, I keep saying, are a big club. And I think this season, more than most, I'll keep saying it again, is the hardest time for anybody to be managing a club like Celtic. Ultimately, Dermot Desmond, I think, will make the decision. I think Neil Lennon is a man who I think is coming towards the end of his range. I think he knows himself that he's under the pump, he's under pressure. There's no doubt that having no fans at Celtic Park has affected Celtic more than it's affected Rangers at Ibrox. There's absolutely no question about it. Coronavirus has definitely played a major part in Celtic's struggles, home and away, I would say. But I really don't know. To be perfectly honest, I really don't know the answer. I think if you knew the answer to who might replace Neil Lennon, I think we'd be working in the full-time media, because I don't know the answer. I don't know if you know it yourself, Keane, but it's going to be a very interesting next, certainly 2-3 weeks short term, but certainly coming after New Year, I think will be very, very interesting.
Yeah, it will be very interesting. It'll be very interesting to see kind of who comes in if Neil Lennon is to go, because there's a lot of big names still out there in football. Celtic, like regardless of the situation, they're still a massive, massive club. So they won't have. I think there will be plenty of those suitors still to take over that role. Grant, coming to another club that we have great admiration for is Manchester United. And we talked previously on and off camera kind of about United and kind of about our whole situation kind of this season. I'd just like to get your thoughts on kind of Manchester United's previous game against Istanbul and kind of the performances of those likes of Donny van de Beek and Bruno Fernandes, most notably, because he's someone in I suppose in the world of football at the moment, and he's on fire. And people are calling him penalty merchants and stuff like that, but the stats don't lie. He's a fantastic footballer, and in my opinion, right now, he's the best midfielder in the world at the moment. What's your take on Manchester United and Bruno Fernandes?
Well, I think I watched the game on Tuesday night against Istanbul. Başakşehir here. I love that word. I thought United were better. I thought they were certainly improved on recent performances. This season has been consistently inconsistent, I think, is a really good expression to describe Manchester United this season. As you and I know, we're both passionate Manchester United fans. I am frustrated with Man United this season more than anything I've seen watching United in my time following the club. First of all, I want to say out there that I really like Ole Gunnar Solskjaer as a guy. I think he's a very passionate guy. He really wants to do his best, I think, for certainly one of the biggest clubs in world football. Let's not beat about the bush. It is one of the biggest clubs, if not the biggest club in world football. I think United, under him, have been going through some massive peaks and troughs. When they are very good, Manchester United, I think they could beat anybody in the league, but certainly in Europe as well. But when they are very poor, they can lose to anybody, as we have seen already this season in the Premier League. We'll probably come on to that a little bit later on. The game on Tuesday night against Istanbul at Old Trafford, they certainly had to improve on the away performance. The away performance was pitiful to horrendous. I mean, the opening goal that they conceded in Istanbul was something you would see in a school playground. It was dreadful defending. I think it was Carl Anka, who I follow on Twitter quite a lot, and also a big contributor to the Totally Football show, one of my favourite podcasts. And he absolutely nailed it. I mean, why were they going 9 men sort of up front inside the first 15, 20 minutes of a game away from home? It was crazy play. And also what was quite funny is that Manchester United lost to a team that contained Bolly Bolingoli, who was, of course, at Celtic earlier this season, but then, of course, with all the COVID saga, was sold by the club to this team. And obviously Demba Ba, who obviously played in the Premier League as well at Newcastle. Now, I'm not kind of spraying that team anything wrongly. That was the facts these guys were playing for that team. But United were disjointed and they were abject that night. And it was a defensive disaster. I thought this midweek, I thought they were better, especially in the first half. You mentioned Fernandes, Keane. I've been really impressed with Fernandes since he's come to Manchester United. I think he's very direct. I think he offers a lot in terms of creating opportunities and chances. And what I like about him as well is his off-the-ball movement is very good. When he's on the ball, he always looks for that killer pass. It reminds me in a little way like Fabregas was when he was at his best for Arsenal. But what I love about Bruno is when he gets into that area, sort of 25, 30 yards out, he is tempted to have a shot at goal. He's tempted to play in Rashford or Martial. And I really, really like that in him. I think he's very creative in what he's doing. And I think that's great to see. I also think as well, you mentioned Van de Beek. I was pleased to see him get a start on Tuesday night. I think he needs to play more games. I think maybe Solskjaer is starting to bed him into key games. I think, Europe is where I'm thinking maybe sees him being a focal point, a main protagonist in the team. I don't know. But it amazes me why he doesn't play a lot more in the Premier League, because I do really rate him, especially when he was obviously at Ajax. Yes, there was frailties in Manchester United's play in the second half. They conceded a goal from a free kick. I thought De Gea had pulled off a brilliant save, but it was over the line. It was a great free kick, to be fair. But then after that, United panicked. They hit the bar, Istanbul. And, in the end, when Dan James got the goal right at the end, it was one of those football manager quotes that you would see at the end of a game. That was a Jekyll and Hyde performance. And that's the sort of way I sort of saw the second half of that game. I thought United were really good in the first half. But in the second half, I don't know, they maybe sat back a little bit. They got a bit too relaxed. They maybe thought Istanbul wouldn't kind of get back into the game.
I think making all them subs at that time changed the flow and changed the pace of the game, especially. And I think Bruno coming off was a massive part in that, because he was running the show during the game. Marcus Rashford as well was having a good game on the right hand side. He did provide us extra bit of balance. And then when a couple of them players came off, you seen the lack of quality that we did have. And I think we did learn a couple of things from the game the other night. First thing we learned is when we've everyone fit and everyone firing, we have a very good team. I think the second thing we learned is if we catch a couple of injuries, it'll be back to square one again. I think you have to play like James and Brandon Williams every week. You are going to see the drop in quality in that regard. Again,
Oh, sorry, go on. I was just going to say I actually was quite impressed with Edinson Cavani's performance in midweek. I've been a bit critical of his signing. I thought he was a guy who maybe was coming towards the twilight of his career. I thought he was a really great player, obviously, for Paris Saint-Germain and really good, obviously, at international level for Uruguay. But I actually thought that was his best performance in a Manchester United shirt. When he started on Tuesday night, I thought he really was a thorn in the side for the Başakşehir defence. In fact, actually, I think his movement caused the goalkeeper to make the mistake for the second goal, which I thought was really good. And I think was maybe grossly underrated by the commentary team of Darren Fletcher and Stephen Manaman. Maybe they didn't spot that. I certainly did. I thought it was really good play from him. And what I think is really good as well, Keane, is I think it maybe takes a little bit of pressure, Cavani's performance, off the likes of Mason Greenwood, Martial and Rashford a little bit. That front three have been great this season. But when they're off it, they need a plan B, Manchester United, in attack. And Cavani, I think, offers that. Now, the problem is, it depends which teams you're up against. When you're up against a more physical side, is Cavani a better option? Or when you're looking against a team that like to maybe play out for the back and looking for that high press, do you play with that front three of Martial, Greenwood and Rashford? I chat with a load of Manchester United fans in a WhatsApp group all the time about this. And it's an interesting conundrum that Solskjaer has.
Yeah, it's a good problem for him to have. I suppose last season there was many games, especially towards the end of last season after the lockdown was lifted. Solskjaer didn't trust his bench. He didn't really have options, and you seen late on in games, you've seen the likes of Lingard and Dan James maybe or Juan Mata getting 5 to 10 minute cameo appearances because simply he didn't trust them. But now you see we have a Cavani there, you have a Greenwood, Martial, Rashford. You can rotate them. It's not as you said, it's just this stagnant front three. You have options there now, and I think as you said, it just depends on the opposition, how you tailor it to the opposition you're playing. Because again, you're going to come up against something different every week in the Premier League. It's not like the other leagues in the world where there's that one particular style and you come up against that every week. In the Premier League, it's very it's very tailored. There's a lot different challenges you're going to come up against every week. So I think yes, the signing of Cavani is definitely after benefiting us. Now it seemed like a panic signing when it happened, but I'm happy with him since he's come in.
I was certainly better for him playing on Tuesday night. I know he got the goal. I think did he create? And he's actually scored against Everton. I was trying to remember if he created or scored, but no, he did get his first Premier League goal at Everton. I think like all strikers, getting that first goal for your new club is important, and for Cavani to get that goal at Goodison a couple of weeks ago was very important. United this season. I don't know about yourself, Keane, but I said that earlier on, that phrase, consistently inconsistent. Their home form, certainly in the Premier League, has been nothing to write home about. I do think United are set up to play much better away from Old Trafford. Some of their away performances this season, not just in the league, but in the Champions League, minus that Başakşehir game, have been very impressive. I was really impressed with that performance against PSG, especially when they when they won that game by 2-1. I mentioned the Everton game; they were very good. They were very good in the second half against Newcastle. But I don't know. It all seems to me you're getting a stage forward or two, and then you get a defeat, and then it's back again. And United this season, for me, are just that little bit short, certainly in terms of challenging for the league. I don't know what they need to do to sort that, but the top four will be probably Solskjaer's aim this season. But I don't know, are they missing that link? I don't know. There's a range of things I still feel that United are short of.
Yeah, there is a few things we are short of. I think defensive midfield, I was just about to come to that with regards, obviously, the other night. I think where it was a great performance kind of going forward and we were very progressive and we did attack very well. I think the couple of chances that we gave away was highlighted why a world-class defensive midfielder is needed. If you have that defensive midfielder, the gap between midfield and defence isn't there. I think
who would you go for?
For me, I said this in the summer, like when we were linked with defensive midfielders, I thought Thomas Partey would have been the perfect signing because he's a fantastic defensive midfielder. He was available for 43 million. I think he's someone who would have provided us that physical presence, but also he can play football as well. I think he's like the Man Utd, but he has legs. You know what I mean? Like the Man Utd can't sustain a 38-game season.
I agree with that.
I think if he was 5 years younger, we wouldn't be having this conversation. For me, Partey last summer would have been the man. He would have been the man for me who would have taken us forward with regards. But for me, though, the only kind of like in terms of defensive midfielders out there at the moment, who's really available? There isn't many.
Yeah, that's the problem. That's the problem. I mean, I don't know what your thoughts are on Scott McTominay. I mean, I know that Solskjaer seems to be favouring him alongside Fred in that sort of defensive midfield position. Do we have the solution already with Van de Beek there?
I think Van de Beek needs to play in the team with Bruno. I think like you look at progressively going forward. I think they showed the other night why they should be in the same team together. I think you just need to find that like world-class defensive midfielder. Because if you get a world-class defensive midfielder in there, the defensive Bruno Fernandes doesn't have to worry about his defensive duties. You see when he's further up the pitch, he does damage. I think too many times this season, he's still pulling up the numbers. He's still getting goals and assists. But I think he's having too much defensive responsibility. I think that's why Ollie was playing.
You're really looking at a player like Leon Goretzka from Bayern Munich. He's the sort of player that United are really looking for, but he's not going to leave Bayern Munich. I'm just searching for teams here for that sort of player that United might be looking for.
I think Wilfred Ndidi could be someone that United could look at because he's an engine. He's someone who is a very good defensive midfield player. But I think Man United know now, like in terms of Leicester City, they're probably not going to do business with Leicester City after paying 80 million for Harry Maguire. I think United will be reluctant.
What about someone like Den Donker that was having a couple of really good seasons at Wolves? Or here's an outside bet, and this would never happen. But a guy I have a lot of admiration for from my time following Northern Irish football, Stuart Dallas at Leeds. But Dallas, I think, gets grossly underestimated by a lot of people in the Premier League. Now, I'm not saying that Dallas would want to move to Manchester United, but he's a very versatile player. One. But two, he's growing and improving every game. He's representing Northern Ireland on the international stage. Could that be an option?
Could be an option, but again, I think United, if we're going to go in for that player and we're going to go for automatic progression in terms of someone who is going to slot in there straight away and make an impact, because that's what we need now. I think Ollie needs these type of players because he does have certain shortcomings as a manager. And I think he needs to get quality in there while he's learning in the job. So you have to look at someone like an Ndidi. Maybe, I know Partey's already have to go into Arsenal, so he'd be out of the question. You'd be looking at someone in that mould, who can come in and just solid that up. Because the reason why he's playing McTominay and Fred at the moment is because that they provide the centre backs protection. And you've seen straight away the other night against Istanbul. Now I know we won 4-1, but you've seen straight away without the protection, Lindelof and Maguire are very vulnerable.
Definitely agree with that.
That's why you need someone in there. If you're going to play a Van de Beek and a Bruno Fernandes, who are our best players in midfield, you're going to have to get a world-class defensive midfielder if you're going to play the two of them. Because Fred is good, but in terms of world-class, top-level defensive midfielder, protect your back four, he's not it. He's a good player. I'm not disparaging him in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah, I know. I can absolutely agree with that sense of thinking. I mean, the situation that United are in at the moment. Sorry, I'm sort of swinging the question towards yourself on this, but where do you see Paul Pogba's future? Because you're looking at this midfield sort of evolving here. Obviously, we've not even talked about Alex Telles coming in at the fullback as well. He's looking quite impressive as well.
Yeah, look, I'll be honest. I'm a fan of Paul Pogba. I think he's a quality player, world class footballer. But I think in terms of Ollie's system, in terms of the way Ollie wants to play, and in terms of his overall feeling at the club, I think his time is up. I think the summer will be an ideal for him to part company with the club. And I think with the Euros coming up, if he can put out good performances for France, United can get a decent transfer fee for him. And I think it'd be best for all parties if he leaves, because then we don't have the circus around him. I think we've already made a replacement there in Van de Beek. And I think we can maybe go out and buy someone maybe like a Jack Grealish or someone like that to come into the club as well, and to come in and maybe replace Paul Pogba. So for me, I think the Paul Pogba, as I call it, the Paul Pogba experiment, the return of Paul Pogba, I can't really class it as a full-blown success, even though he has been good in patches at the club. But for me, I think it's clear he doesn't want to be there. It's clear that he doesn't look like to be in Ollie's first choice team at the moment. I think it's best for all parties after the Euros. I pray to God he has a good Euros for France, because then for me United can get the money that they want for him. He can get his move, and all parties are happy at the end of the day. And then Mino Raiola then can, I suppose, get his sizable paycheck we all know he wants, and all parties are happy. That's my feeling on the Paul Pogba situation.
Yeah, of course, he got into a spat with Simon Jordan on the TalkSport recently, didn't he? that was popcorn material, wasn't it? I can't disagree with your thoughts on Pogba. I actually see him now as the impact player that comes off the bench, and what I thought Pogba would turn out to be when he came back to Manchester United would be a little bit like what Yaya Toure was coming towards the end of his time at Man City. That sort of guy that would break out from that sort of midfield to get their team up the pitch, to almost be that number 8 almost when they're sort of breaking. But it's not quite worked out for him, and I think part of it is his own undoing. Obviously, he's kind of fallen out of form. But also as well, I think still, and this goes back to what we've kind of been discussing throughout this discussion at Manchester United, where is Pogba's best position? And I still personally don't know where that is. Maybe you know better than me. For me, he's not a defensive midfield player, but neither is he attacking mid either. So does he sit in a central role? Does he play slightly further wide? I don't think he suits that either. So it's a tricky conundrum.
Yeah, I think for me, Paul Pogba is he's a number 8. He's not a number 10. He's not a number 10, but I think he's an 8. I think he's an 8. He's number 8 in the midfield 3. I think if there's when there's a good defensive midfielder in with someone like him, he can play as an 8 and he can play in the box to box role. He's not a 10 because I don't know. He's kind of a blend between an 8 and a 10 for me. He's not an out and out 10. Like if you get what I mean, he's not like
yes,
like what
he's like an 8/10. yeah.
He's like a hybrid almost. Like
yes, that's exactly the word I was looking for.
He's like a hybrid almost. Like someone who's a blend between an 8 and a 10, and he's a good attacking midfielder. He's a fantastic footballer. And like, don't get me wrong, I'll never question like Paul Pogba's quality. I simply never will. I'm never going to question his quality as a footballer. But I think for me, the experiment has failed, and I think for him, he doesn't want to be at the club. Paul Pogba, he clearly doesn't want I suppose to fight for his place. I don't think he's that type of player. I don't think he's someone who's going to accept being on the bench. And I think
I agree with that.
Long term in terms of the dressing room, I think to make sure there's not any unrest and there's no, I suppose, headlines. I think for all parties, it'd be best for Pogba to move on. Do I think that'll happen in January? Absolutely not. I don't think at this stage of the season.
No, I agree with that. Yeah.
We're going to get anyone. I don't think we get any amount that we think we should get for him. I don't think that.
How much would you be looking for to sell Pogba for? 30, 40 million?
Like for me, Well, it'd be more than that.
How
For
much
me,
of a
like,
hit?
look,
Basically, the question I'm asking is, how much of a hit are you willing to take as a fan to see Pogba out with Manchester United? I would say 40 million is the best you'll get for Pogba right now. That's my brutally honest opinion.
I think right now on current form, yes, that's probably what 40, 50 million you'd probably get for Pogba. Probably then, like that's probably realistically, what you get.
And realistically, Keane, where would he go? Would he go to Palace? Would he maybe go to the Spanish league? I mean, where do you see him realistically going? This is the thing.
I think at this stage of the season, he doesn't really get into any of these teams, and that's,
no, I agree.
That's what the problem is. But what I will say with regard to this view, I think if Paul Pogba has a good European Championships this season at Manchester United, it's forgotten about. You know how it is. You know how reactionary clubs are when they see a player have a good European Championships or a World Cup.
Yeah.
You've seen how it is, and that's why I think United won't want to do business in January. They won't want to take the hit. They'll be probably thinking this, that if he goes out and has a good Euros, we get the money back what we paid for him. I think that's what realistically what United what will probably happen is that he'll have a good Euros and United hope, right, let's get the 89 million back for him. If not, they might take, let's say, a 20 million hit and sell him for about 60, 70, in around that range. I think that's what probably happened. Considering the hits we've taken on Di Maria and Alexis Sanchez and stuff like that, and with COVID and the whole situation United are in, I don't see us financially wanting to take a massive hit, considering we don't know what the state is around the fans, and especially after Christmas, we don't know how many fans we're going to get in the stadium with lockdowns and whatnot. Like, so for me, I think United won't do it in January. I think January's out of the question in terms of him leaving. But what I will say, with regards to, I think you will see United probably trying to recoup that, especially if with the World Cup, with the Euros next summer. I think that is the window of opportunity for United to sell up. I think that's a massive opportunity for United to sell Paul Pogba. Grant, speaking about the Euros, you're a happy man a couple of weeks ago. Scotland. So for the first time, I believe since
I'm still boogieing. I'm still boogieing.
For the first time, Grant, since 1998, Scotland qualified for a major tournament. Absolutely, though, I was delighted for you when I seen you go through. I thought it was fantastic for Scottish football, and I thought, as like there's loads of Scottish players playing in the Premier League as well. It was great to see. For you, how are you feeling about qualifying for the Euros, and what was the feeling over in Scotland kind of when it happened?
Well, put it this way, Keane, when it came to the penalty shootout, I was barred from watching it live. I was sent to my to the kind of kitchen area, the dining room area of my house while my folks were watching the game with my brother. And I was banned because during the semi-final against Israel, that happened as well. And Scotland won the shootout. So if I'd stayed to watch it live, I'd have been a jinx if we'd lost. So, but listen, in all seriousness, I mean, it's superb that we managed to qualify for Euro 2020. I mean, I was 7 when we qualified for France 1998. I have very, very vague memories of the opening match against Brazil and slightly better memories of Craig Burley's goal against Norway, the only goal Scotland scored, apart from the penalty that Colin scored at the World Cup. It's great Scotland are at the Euros. I think any other year, apart from this time with coronavirus, we would have been still partying by now. David Marshall, for me, was unbelievable in that game. Obviously, the penalty save from Alexander Mitrovic in the shootout, but everybody will forget his save in extra time as well. When Serbia got their equaliser to take the game to extra time, it was like our hearts had sunk on the floor again because we dominated the game, really. Ryan Christie scored a really superb goal. We probably should have been further in front. We had chances to add to our lead, didn't take them. Andy Robertson, Ryan Christie missed a couple of good chances. But when you're only 1-0 up and you don't see a game out, you're always expecting an onslaught. And it was kind of coming and kind of not. And then, of course, we could see from a corner, which is unlike Steve Clarke's sides, who are usually so resolute and tough to beat from set pieces. And when it goes 1-1, you just automatically think, oh, here we go again, not again, another disappointing failure once again. So when it came to the shootout and we won, I mean, incredible. And listen, well, now at the major finals, we've got absolutely nothing to lose. We're in a group with England, the Czechs, and Croatia. We will be the underdogs. There is no question about that. We'll have 2 games at Hampden, hopefully with fans, which would be superb for every member of the Tartan Army. I'll be jealous because I probably won't have got a ticket to go once.
And all of Ireland as well.
Yeah. So make no mistake about it. We are there. We'll be having a good laugh. We'll be having a lot of fun, hopefully. Let's hope this vaccine comes quick so we can get fans back to stadia. But it's great to finally get the monkey off the back of it back at major finals.
Yeah, it's gonna be great, and I'm gonna be, like I've said this on Twitter a couple of weeks ago, I'm gonna be getting my Scotland jersey for the Euros with McTominay.
You should get a kill.
Do you know what? I have a few Scottish friends, so I can probably arrange that. I probably could, but definitely I'm gonna get a Scotland jersey with McTominay in the back of it, simply because he's Scottish and he's a Man United player, and like I couldn't I know I've been vocal on the podcast. Like again, for me, I think seeing all the home nations mostly all qualify for the Euros is always good to see. Now, because it's a shame the Republic of Ireland didn't get there. That was heartbreaking. But for me, it's good to see Scotland there, because they're a team who haven't been in the major tournament in a while. So it'll be good to see kind of how they get on. And again, they're in a tough group. So again, for them, they've nothing to lose, and I think they could cause a shock in one of them. I think Czech Republic are beatable. I think they're definitely a beatable.
We beat them before. We beat them 1-0 in the Nations League. So we are very capable on our day of winning these games. We have people like London Dykes, who Steve Clarke has found and really been a revelation for us. We missed Ryan Fraser in the Serbia game, but he's been outstanding. Ryan Christie's been excellent for us. At the back we have Declan Gallagher. Many of your followers won't maybe know him, but he obviously has been really great for Motherwell. We also have David Marshall in goal, who's been excellent. People like Andy Robertson, who are a Champions League and Premier League winners. So we have got some good players.
The only Scottish player I don't like. He's the only Scottish player I don't like. And
I wonder why.
No, you know what? It's not even his Liverpool connection, Grant. It's just the way in interviews. I just don't like him. And
he's from Queen's Park. He's from Queen's Park, for God's sake. But no, I can absolutely understand what you're saying about that.
And I'm actually going to explain the reason why Andy Robertson isn't one of my favourite players. It's before when Liverpool were lost in the first leg to Atletico Madrid, right before kind of coronavirus happened, and he got interviewed by BT Sport, and I can't think of your man's name from BT Sport who was interviewing him.
Des Kelly, maybe.
Could have been Des Kelly. Des Kelly interviewing him, and he's like, "How'd you feel about the game?" And he kind of he degraded Atletico's performance altogether. He's like, "Well, look, they have to come back to Anfield. I know we'll be there. Our fans will be there. So like, kind of welcome to hell kind of situation, And he kind of said it in kind of an arrogant kind of tone. And for me, I was like, right, I'm not gonna say the word, but I was thinking. You're a bit cocky, like you're a bit cocky, like.
Well, we all know what happened next, didn't they? Because Atletico won. Yeah.
Atletico went on and won, and I know they say corner taken quickly. Origi, it was corner taken slowly, Morata. So that's absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, that's very good.
Grant, we have a question in on Facebook Live from David Mann, Manchester United fan. He says, how does Grant rate Scott McTominay?
I think he's decent. I think internationally, Steve Clarke's been playing him in the 3 at the back. And don't get me wrong, there are parts of his game that he still needs to work on. But overall, I think he's improving every time I watch him. When I first saw him appear on the stage at Manchester United, I was sceptical of how he could develop, how he could improve. And I know United have got a lot of really good youngsters sort of coming through their academy. One that immediately springs to my mind is Ethan Galbraith, who's really ripping it up for the under-21s in Northern Ireland.
He's fantastic. He's a great player.
But I think McTominay is sort of in the same mould as him in a way. I think there's a long way to go with McTominay's career at this stage. I think he could develop into that versatile defensive midfield player, which I actually think is his best position. But Steve Clarke at Scotland is obviously playing with him in the 3 at the back. And every time I've watched him, as I said, it's taken time, but he's improving. There's a long way to go, as I said, but the signs are good.
Yeah, he is a good player. And I like Scott McTominay a lot. I think
good question, that by the way. Good question.
Yeah, like he's a good player for me, and I don't know if you know this, Grant. I don't know if I told you on when I was on your podcast, but I've though the last year's snakeskin jersey, United jersey, I've Max Goss number 39 on the back of that jersey.
That's quite good.
I was drunk going into Old Trafford for the Liverpool game last season, and I tried to get Slabhead number 5 on the back of my jersey, and I went into the United Megastore, bought the jersey, and then I went to the cabin yoke outside Old Trafford where you can go and get their numbering done. And I said to your man, I wrote it down on a sheet of paper, Slabhead number 5, and they came back to me. It's like, you can't get that in the back of the jersey. Harry Maguire doesn't actually like being called Slabhead. And I was like, he's on 250k a week, and you're telling me I can't get Slabhead number 5 on the back of my jersey? And they were like, no, you can't. So I was like, right, fair enough. Give me Max Sauce number 39. So, so that's a good Scott McTominay story, in that respect. But again, look, he's a good player. He does show a lot of passion in a Manchester United shirt. He's someone who always plays the badge, and people like him to a Darren Fletcher. He's in that kind of mould of a player who is.
Well, that's what he should be aspiring to get towards, I should say, Keane. Sorry to come across you there, but yes, that's the sort of player that McTominay needs to aspire to. Darren Fletcher. I regard Darren Fletcher as one of Manchester United's most underrated players of my time following the club, but also in a Scotland jersey. If he hadn't had his illness, I think he would have gone on to have a wonderful playing career. I mean, he had a great career, obviously, but I think he would have gone on to be even better.
Yeah, and I think, depends how he goes now, because, if Ollie leaves, and let's say Maurizio Pochettino comes in, worry for him. I do worry for him. Because I know Pochettino does like hard-working players, but he likes hard-working players also with a bit of graft about him. So it depends. I worry about him. It depends who comes in, in that respect, if Ollie does leave. Because I know Ollie likes him, and Jose really liked him. Because Jose made his own player to be year award for Scott McTominay.
Yes.
But I worry about him if another manager comes in who has a whole different philosophy. It could hurt him. But that's not to say if he ever does leave Man United, I think there will definitely be another Premier League club in front. He is Premier League quality.
Yeah, no, I agree with that.
Absolutely. Grant, before we end here tonight, I always like to ask my guests memories about kind of football and kind of what future plans they have as well. So I'm going to come to the two different topics just before we end. The first one, in terms of football games you've got, whether it's kind of Manchester United, Scotland, Aberdeen, kind of any of them games, what's your most fond memory of being at a football match?
Well, there's quite a few that spring to mind, so I'll maybe try and pick one from each of the categories you mentioned. I'll start with Manchester United, because also this is a Manchester United podcast. I was actually at Old Trafford to watch them play Crystal Palace. I think it was 2003-04 or 2004-05, can't remember the year directly. Maybe you can remind me of this. Finished Manchester United 5, Crystal Palace 2. Alan Smith, I thought I got a hat-trick that day, but I believe he was only scored twice. Alan Smith that used to play for Leeds, a guy who, I think had a bit of a checkered career, obviously a lot of brushes with the law and things like that, but, had a whirlwind night. It's synonymous for a few reasons. One, Wayne Rooney missed a penalty. I got Paul Scholes' autograph, along with Lee Saha and Gabor Kirai, the Crystal Palace goalkeeper. And I saw a load of goals, and it was a 5:30 kickoff. We were down in Manchester for a weekend. My dad came with me. We did the hospitality setting at Old Trafford. Really, really great night. And actually, Crystal Palace played quite well, even though they lost 5-2. I think Danny Granville scored that night. I can't remember who got the other goal. I'm tempted to say it was somebody called Aki Rialate, but I could be wrong with that. But it was 5-2. It was a really interesting game. And, United didn't have some of their big hitters that night on form. It was, as I said, Rooney missed a penalty for the start. I think keeper saved it. But that's probably my big memory following United, because I was actually physically at Old Trafford. I don't get to a lot of games at Manchester United. I really should go to more games personally, but I do follow them very closely here in the northeast of Scotland. Obviously, the great memories is the 2008 Champions League final beating Chelsea. It's quite funny because I just started at university for a short course I was attending, and my lecturer the next day was talking about something to do with English literature, because that was what I was involved doing, and this was to get into university. And in it was talking about tragedies. It's synonymous with Othello. And he was kind of comparing the situation to John Terry's slip in the Champions League penalty shootout, which I found pretty amusing. I'm still friends with this guy as well, so that makes it an interesting story. In terms of Aberdeen, I've seen my fair share of Aberdeen games, good and bad over time. The great thing following Aberdeen, and I don't know if I can actually swing this round actually while I'm sitting here actually, but what is really great here is on my wall in front of me here is the signed Aberdeen shirt from the 2014 League Cup final, which the Dons won on a penalty shootout. The first silverware since 1990, which was the Scottish Cup, a year before I was born. I'm born in 91. So I actually saw that team win a dreadful game against Inverness Cali Thistle, 0-0. Won it on penalty shootout. Adam Rooney scored the winning penalty. Adam, for a short period of time, lived in Ellum. I actually have loads of pictures with Adam when I've been out on nights out, things like that, when I've seen him. A great guy, a hero of Ellum in the northeast of Scotland. So that's my greatest memories following the Dons. But I went to a lot of Aberdeen games in the past. I've seen us beating Celtic. I've seen us beating Rangers. And, obviously we've seen a fair share of defeats as well. I was there when we lost 5-1 against St Johnstone not too long ago. And, that was a pretty poor result. I've seen us lose to Dundee United on the opening day of the season, 3-0. That wasn't particularly clever either. So there have been good days and bad days following Aberdeen, but that's the beauty of Scottish football, isn't it? You have to take the rough with the smooth. And in terms of Scotland, obviously I follow Scotland from a distance. I've been to the National Stadium, but I've never actually been to Hampden to watch a Scotland game. However, I have seen Scotland live again with my dad. We went to Pittodrie to see them play Estonia in a friendly, incidentally. Not a classic. It was 1-1-0. Chris Burke, who now plays for Kilmarnock, got the only goal of the game. It wasn't a great watch. I can't even remember who was manager. I think it might have been Alex McLeish at the time. But that was great memories. And what was really good about it, it was the kind of hubbub with the fans. They got involved with some of the songs at half-time and straight the game. International football as atmosphere is totally different to club football, I think. I think with club football, obviously, you've got your traditional songs and things like that. With international football, everybody, you may not know, maybe support Rangers, may support Kilmarnock, may support Motherwell, may support Aberdeen like yourself, get involved, and it's almost like an out or with family rather than your own club traditional family. And I think international football gets overlooked more and more now, because club football is seen as the king because of TV, because of a range of other aspirations like FIFA, Football Manager, etc. All these things that kind of come up. But international football still has a place, I feel, in football. And, things like European Championships, which obviously Scotland will now be at, which is great. World Cups, loads of things like that. I think, hopefully, certainly as a Scotland fan, I'd like to see international football get a bit of a pickup as a result of this. I don't think it'll happen, sadly, because I think club football has strangled that grip hole now because of, all the money that's being sprawled about. I mentioned television, I mentioned social media. But yeah, it's fun. It's always, there's never a dull moment following Aberdeen, Man United, and obviously Scotland.
And Scotland, yeah. Look, for me, in terms of my favourite memories, obviously Manchester United. For me, probably my most favourite memory is when I went to the EFL Cup final back in 2017. We beat Southampton 3-2. Zlatan Ibrahimovic scored in the last minute of the game. And when
that's right, because Gabby Adinis was on fire for Southampton that day as well, if I remember.
Yeah, he did.
Reason I know that is because my PhD mentor at the time was a Southampton fan. And I was obviously interacting with Manchester United. She was commenting, this is a woman, sort of the Southampton man. She was commenting on saying that she was actually at the game. She was in the Southampton end because her father-in-law, I think it was a Southampton fan, and they got tickets for the game. And it was quite funny because I think Southampton, were they not level? Did they not come from behind twice in the game? If I'm trying to remember.
Yeah, so we were 2-0 up.
That's right. They got it back to 2-2. That's right.
And they had a goal disallowed. They shouldn't have been disallowed.
That's right, because I remember Matt Letizia being pretty unhappy about that. That's right.
And then Ibrahimovic scored in the 87th minute to win it for us. And I remember when Ibrahimovic scored, though everyone jumps up when a goal goes in, right? There was this guy sitting in front of me, and he was about 6'6", 6'7", big guy, really big guy. He jumps up, but when he jumps up, he throws his elbow back, not purposely, right? Not
I
purposely,
think I know where this is
obviously.
going.
His elbow comes back, hits me on the bridge of the nose. My nose starts bleeding, and I fly back into the chair, but I'm getting back up to celebrate anyway. And the guy kind of picks me up. And he's like, "You okay? You okay?" And I was like, blood coming like on my hands. And I was like, "I'm absolutely fine." We're after I was jumping up, going crazy, celebrating. But for me, that's one of my favorite memories. Being at a game. Because I suppose it was our first kind of trophy post Sir Alex. Obviously, there was the false dawn of Jose Mourinho. Then I thought, geez, Mourinho's after getting us a trophy already. Good times are coming back. I think for me that was one of my favorite memories. Being at a game because seeing us win a trophy and going to Wembley. That was a great occasion for me. One of my favorite memories as an Ireland fan, even though I wasn't at the game, but when Ireland got into the Euros and we played Italy in the final group game, and when we scored that winner, when Robbie Brady scored that winner,
I remember that. Yep.
I was in a pub called Gleason's Bar here in Campbell. Shout out to Richie Gleason, the top man. I was in the pub Gleason's Bar, and it was literally green. Ireland jerseys.
There's a common theme here. There's a common theme here.
Absolutely. But literally, it was green. It was literally like being in the Aviva or something. Like, everyone was drinking. Absolutely. Sing-songs were flowing. And then, like, Wes Hoolahan, I remember, like, he missed a sitter. Like, literally 2 minutes before Robbie Brady's goal. And we were all thinking, shit, this is not going to be our day. Like, it's not going to be our day. But then Robbie Brady scored the winner. It was euphoria. Like, literally, points were flying everywhere. Everyone was jumping around, hugging each other. We're all singing Ireland songs. And, like, then we were going on to the next round and play France and possibly get revenge for 2009. That feeling when we got out of the group stage, and that kind of, like, to get out into a knockout stage of Euro 2016 at the time, when it was, like, with the group we had, we shouldn't have got through. Like, Sweden, Belgium, and Italy. No way Ireland should have got out of that group, but we did.
Yeah.
And then to go on and play against France and arguably could have beaten that day, and that's a team who went on and won the Euros. That was a fantastic performance for Ireland to get to beat Italy. And it's one of my favorite moments as an Ireland fan. And so I suppose being in Gleason's as well, and the day at that pub, and kind of, it was like being in the Aviva Stadium. Like, it was absolutely fantastic. And I'm just shouting out to Richie now, when we're all out back in the pubs and when Ireland are back playing and we're in a major tournament, don't worry, Richie, I'm going to be the first person down at your door at 12 o'clock that day. Have a pint of Bulmers and have a green diesel ready for me, because I will be down there 100%. So Grant, final question for you and final topic in light. In terms of your own podcast, you're doing Campbells Footballs, and you're doing a fantastic job over there, and you're pumping out content left, right, and centre. In terms of this, I know you're working with Callum with CFB as well. What are your plans for the future?
So, in the short term, my next podcast is out tomorrow with Cliftonville midfield legend Barry Johnston, who's now retired but has had a fantastic playing career, won a couple of Irish League titles, played against Scott Brown when he was a Cliftonville player against Celtic, which I'm sure many people will be intrigued to listen to that story. I've got 3 more podcasts coming out after that before I take a break for the year in terms of my own podcast. I've got Larne striker David McDade, which is a really interesting story. David's played in the League of Ireland at Derry City, but has also played at Coleraine and Larne and a range of other clubs as well, which I'm sure will be an interesting chat. I'm also chatting, as I said, which I'm interviewing tomorrow, Andy Waterworth of Linfield. And then I'm chatting to Joe the Goal, Joe Gormley, who will be my last show of the year. Joe is a legend of Cliftonville, still playing. He's scored, I think, over 200 goals for Cliftonville in 2 separate stints in the club. So that's another bit of Irish League history that I'm looking forward to chatting to Joe about. That'll be really, really good. So that's in terms of the podcast for me up until Christmas. After Christmas, I've grand plans to chat to a musician here in Scotland who is a real legend of the music world. Really going strong. I can't give it away at the moment because I've not had the absolute go for it yet, but I'm eagerly anticipating a yes any day now, which should be pretty good. Anybody who loves their music and loves Scottish music in particular, particularly recent Scottish music, might have an idea who I may have in mind with that one. I'm also keen to get a top TV chef on the show as well, who's a big Liverpool fan. Not great, obviously, for this show, but that's certainly something I'm planning to get involved as well. And then just a range of other people from the world of football. But obviously, I have grand plans, and now that I'm taking a break after next week, I'll be sort of sketching things out a little bit more clearly. Also, if people do want to keep up to date with my written content, as you quite rightly say, I do work with Football CFB, and Callum McFadden, got to say, is doing an absolutely tremendous job with Football CFB. Really, really great compendium of content, not just writing, but podcasts as well. So if people aren't following Callum Stauffer, please recommend you do. But also, I please recommend you follow my work in two capacities. One is every Wednesday or Thursday evening, I do an official Northern Irish League preview of the week, where I give my team of the previous week, my predictions that I post, and I write my sort of preview of the games that take place, my player of the week who's been starting, and my player to scout for the week ahead. My recent blog went out on Monday this week because there were some midweek games, so do check them out, and please have a laugh at some of the predictions that I made. Notable blunder from me this week, I fancied Cliftonville to beat Ballymena at home 2-1, and Ballymena won 4-0. So not particularly good for me there. So I write that during the week, and then every Sunday evening I write my Scottish Premiership review of the week, where I review some of the major talking points in the Scottish Footballing League, and that goes out every Sunday. So do check out my content. Any feedback, constructive, positive, is much appreciated. And as I always say to people, just be kind. We're all doing our best to fit in. We're all enjoying doing what we do. I always say to people that if they have not anything nice to say, then either don't read it or move on. But I really appreciate the people who do read and do listen to my shows and the work that I do for Football CFP. So please go and check not just my stuff out, but everything else that Callum and his team are doing at Football CFP, because we're building a revolution, and it's great to be a part of it.
Absolutely, you're doing fantastic work yourself.
Can I just plug one other thing at the moment? I'm also involved with Callum and another fellow podcaster, John Bleasdale. Hi, John, if you're watching this. We are part of a project called the SPFL 42 Show, which talks about all of Scottish football for all of Scottish football. We don't just talk about the Premiership in Scotland, but we also talk about the Championship League 1, League 2, and the lower league, Highland League, and women's football as well. We have a range of content that is continuously getting pumped out each week. My latest show is with some people in the Highland League, which restarts here in Scotland this weekend on Saturday. So when that comes out, please do give it a listen. You might learn something different that people might not know here in Scotland, but also elsewhere in the world of football as well. And as I always talked about right at the beginning, Keane, these unsung heroes, their stories are waiting to be told. And hopefully people watching this, or people who do watch this, watching back, or listen to this watching back, maybe can go and check some of us out, because, as I said, we're building a revolution, and I'm really glad and privileged to be a part of the journey.
Yeah, and you're doing incredible work yourself, and Callum and all the other lads though who are part of CFB, and you're doing great work in your podcast as well. So do keep it up, though. And I'm very interested to see kind of where your journey kind of takes you. Do you know, in that regard? I'm just going to ask you one quick thing, obviously, about the podcast, actually, just before we finish up. Do you have any plans to kind of delve into like League of Ireland?
Absolutely, yes. I have plans to chat with. I had plans to chat with Declan Devine, the Derry City manager. That hasn't come to pass yet, but I do intend to get back in touch with Declan in the new year. But yes, absolutely, there will be some League of Ireland content. I did speak to Josh Bunting earlier on in the series. He follows Shamrock Rovers, also does a lot of work with Arsenal Women, and is a big Cliftonville fan as well. So I have already been sort of brushing across the League of Ireland surface, but yes, I'll certainly be delving into all of that in the future as well.
Yeah, definitely. I'd definitely be interested to listen to that. As we talked in your podcast, it is a fantastic league, and people do need to kind of admire that league also.
Yeah, 100%.
And just for ourselves here, obviously, look, we are back actually in a half an hour's time, and we have another show live in a half an hour. The London Lowdown is back, and Sean and Jamie will be previewing the Chelsea versus Tottenham Hotspur game this weekend. So we have Tottenham versus Chelsea on the podcast, so that should be exciting as always. And again, next week, Callum McFadden is also back on our weekly Manchester United show, Devil's Advocate. Callum will be hosting another panel of guests again also. So do check that out. And also next week, our MMA pod will be back as well. And so myself and Jamie Murphy are going to be joined by a host of fighters on the podcast, because there is the small matter of the Conor McGregor versus Dustin Poirier fight, which has been announced in the last couple of days. So we will be breaking down that fight in great detail. So do tune in for that. And as always, look, if you're watching this for the first time, or do smash that like button, or if you haven't subscribed, do hit that subscribe button as well, because there's plenty of content coming on the fly. So we post multiple shows every week, and that is going to continue going forward. And I do appreciate everyone's support of this channel, guests, viewers, my contributors, every single last one of you. I really do appreciate. So do continue to show your support, because we will be. I suppose we're coming towards the end of the year now, and we will be pumping shows out, especially coming towards Christmas. We're going to have a Christmas special in a couple of weeks, which I have a few rules for the lads on that show. We will have our Christmas jumpers. That is going to be a given. Our Christmas jumpers are going to be there. We're going to see who can wear the most ridiculous Christmas jumper on the show. So that should be exciting. And we'll be having a couple of drinks live on the show as well. So that's going to be great. So I do have plans. I will delve into that in the next week or so, kind of with regards to who will be on and such like that. But do tune in for that. And again, do check out Grant's podcast, Campbells Footballs, and doing great work over there. And look, he's happy to contribute to this channel as well. So do check Grant out. He's doing fantastic work as well. And so look, thanks everyone for watching, and look, we will see you soon.